The research station sat quiet on the surface of the small moon. Inside the glass domes, scientists from the Zellari species worked on their experiments. They were studying plants that could make new medicines. The Zellari were small beings, barely reaching 4 feet tall. Their skin was almost see-through and soft lights glowed inside their bodies. They were peaceful people who had never known war. Commander Zeleth looked at the reports on his screen. 200 Zellari lived here, including families with children. Everything had been going well for the past 3 years. The research was progressing. The medicines they discovered could help millions across the galaxy. Life was good. Then the alarm started screaming. Zeleth ran to the observation window. His heart sank. Ships were appearing in space above them. Not just 1 or 2, but 20 massive warships. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons. He knew those ships. Everyone in the galaxy knew them. The Kravith Dominion had arrived. The Kravith were conquerors. They took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. They were tall and strong, covered in natural armor. They had been expanding their empire for decades, leaving enslaved worlds behind them. And now they were here. A message came through on all channels. A deep, harsh voice filled every speaker in the station. It was Warlord Thraxus, commander of the Kravith fleet. His words were simple and cruel. Surrender now and become slaves, or refuse and die. The Zellari had 6 hours to decide. Zeleth felt fear grip his chest. The Zellari had no weapons. They had no soldiers. Their bodies were too fragile to fight. Even their small transport ship was designed for cargo, not escape. They were researchers, not warriors. What could they possibly do against 20 warships? He called an emergency meeting with the senior staff. Everyone looked terrified. Some suggested surrendering to save the children. Others wanted to try running, even though they knew the transport ship would be destroyed before it left the moon. They argued and debated, but everyone knew the truth. They had no good options. Then Zeleth remembered something. Before leaving their homeworld, every Zellari colony received an emergency beacon. It could send distress signals across vast distances on frequencies monitored by space-traveling species. The signals reached far, but help might take weeks to arrive. The Galactic Council kept peacekeeping fleets, but they were slow and bound by rules and procedures. Even if they heard the signal, they could never arrive in 6 hours. But Zeleth had to try something. He went to the communications room and activated the beacon. He recorded a simple message: their location, the threat they faced, and a plea for help from anyone listening. He sent it out on every emergency frequency the beacon could reach. Then he waited. The hours crawled by like days. The Zellari began gathering the children in the center of the main dome. Parents held their little ones close. Scientists who had spent years studying life-saving medicines, now prepared to die or face enslavement. Some cried quietly. Others just stared at the ceiling, watching the Kravith ships through the transparent dome. 3 hours passed. No response to the distress signal. The Kravith began moving closer to the moon, their weapons powering up. They were getting ready. 4 hours passed. Some Zellari tried to comfort each other. They shared memories of their homeworld, of better times. They told the children stories to keep them calm. But everyone could feel death approaching. Then something changed. The communications officer called out. They were detecting new signals. Ships were approaching the system. 4 vessels, unknown signatures. They were moving fast, faster than seemed possible for ships of that size. Zeleth felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe someone had heard their call. Maybe help was coming. But when he saw the readouts, his hope dimmed. Only 4 ships against the Kravith fleet. It seemed like a suicide mission. Whoever was coming would die trying to help them. The Kravith detected the approaching ships too. Warlord Thraxus sent out a message, ordering the newcomers to leave immediately or be destroyed. His voice was full of amusement. He seemed to think this was funny. Then came the response, a human voice, calm and cold. The words were simple and direct. The Kravith had 6 minutes to leave the system. This was their only warning. Thraxus laughed. He had never heard of humans. His computer searched the databases and found minimal information. They came from a planet called Earth. The planet was listed as a high-gravity world with a warning label. Dangerous, that was all. Thraxus ignored it. How dangerous could these newcomers really be? He had 20 warships and hundreds of fighters. He had veteran crews who had conquered dozens of worlds. 4 small ships posed no threat. He ordered his fleet to destroy them and sent out his fighters. The 4 human ships kept coming. They did not slow down or change course. They just accelerated, heading straight into the Kravith formation. It looked like madness. On the lead human ship, a vessel called the Dawn's Justice, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge. His crew worked quietly around him, checking weapons and shields. Commander Lisa Chang coordinated with the other 3 human ships. The Valiant, the Iron Storm, and the Nightfall were all ready for battle. Morrison looked at the display showing the Zilari station. 200 innocent people were down there. 200 people who had called for help. And humanity had heard them. Lieutenant Ben Tucker reported that all weapons were ready. The railguns were loaded. Missiles were armed. The ship's armor was holding steady. Everything was prepared. Morrison thought about the message they had received. The desperation in that Zilari voice, the fear. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth. She was about the same age as some of those Zilari children. What if she needed help and no one came? That thought made his decision easy. They would fight. They would win. Or they would die trying, but those people down there would not face this alone. The Kravith opened fire first. Energy weapons and plasma bolts filled space, targeting the approaching human ships. The attack was massive, enough firepower to vaporize most vessels, but the human ships were not like most vessels. They twisted and rolled, dodging through the firestorm with impossible precision. Their pilots endured forces that would kill most species. The humans barely noticed. Morrison smiled coldly. The Kravith wanted a fight. Now they would get one. Now they would learn what happened when you threatened innocents within range of humanity's fleet. Now they would understand what it meant to face warriors from a death world. He gave the order his crew was waiting for. All ships engage the enemy. Show them what humans can do. The battle for Viridian 7 had begun. The first missile volley from the Dawn's Justice hit the Kravith shields like hammers. The energy barriers flickered and sparked under the impact. The Kravith weapon officers looked at their readings in confusion. These missiles hit harder than anything their size should. Much harder. Then they understood. The humans were not using energy weapons or plasma like civilized species. They were using solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. Kinetic weapons. Primitive technology that the Kravith had abandoned centuries ago. But the humans had perfected these crude weapons into something terrifying. Lieutenant Ryan Carter sat in the cockpit of his fighter, launched from the Valiant. 5 other fighters flew beside him in tight formation. They screamed between the massive Kravith cruisers, moving so fast the enemy targeting systems could not lock on. The Kravith tried to hit them with point defense weapons, but the human pilots were too good. Carter spotted his target. A Kravith cruiser had its main engine exposed, the shield generator struggling to cover everything at once. He lined up his shot and fired the railgun mounted under his fighter. The solid metal round punched through the weakened shield like it was not there. It tore through the armor plating. Then it hit the engine core. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The cruiser broke apart from the inside, flames and debris spreading in all directions. Carter whooped and pulled his fighter into a hard turn that would have made most species pass out from the forces involved. He barely felt it. Humans were built for high gravity. Their bodies could take punishment that would kill others. On the bridge of the Dawn's Justice, Commander Lisa Chang watched the tactical display. The 4 human ships were outnumbered 5-1, but they were winning. The Kravith fought like bullies, used to overwhelming weaker opponents with superior numbers. They had never faced anyone who hit back harder. Captain Morrison watched a Kravith destroyer fire its main weapon at the Iron Storm. The plasma bolt was massive, enough to melt through most ship hulls. It struck the Iron Storm dead center. The human ship rocked from the impact, but her captain, Helen Price, reported only minor damage. Human ships were built different. They had thick armor plating, redundant systems, and shielding designed to absorb kinetic impacts. Because humans came from a world where meteors fell from the sky and volcanoes could destroy continents, they built their ships to survive. Morrison gave new orders. The 4 human ships stopped dodging and charged directly at the Kravith formation. To the watching Zilari, it looked like suicide. To the Kravith, it was madness. To the humans, it was standard tactics. The Dawn's Justice plowed into a Kravith frigate at full speed. The human ship's reinforced bow was designed for ramming. The frigate crumpled like paper. Morrison did not slow down. He fired at point-blank range into another enemy vessel, railgun rounds tearing through its hull. The battle became chaos. Human fighters darted everywhere, striking from unexpected angles. The larger human ships moved through the Kravith formation like wolves among sheep. Every shot the humans fired seemed to find weak points in shields and armor. Every maneuver put them in position to strike again. Lieutenant Ben Tucker coordinated the weapons on the Dawn's Justice. He had served in Earth's Navy for 15 years before joining the Space Fleet. He knew how to fight. He knew how to hurt the enemy while keeping his own ship safe. His railgun batteries fired in perfect rhythm, each shot calculated for maximum damage. Ryan Carter's fighter squadron had lost one pilot already. Lieutenant Amy Foster's wingman had taken a direct hit from a Kravith point defense turret. But the rest kept fighting. They hit a Kravith carrier, destroying its fighter bays before the enemy could launch more craft. They crippled a destroyer's shield generator. They were everywhere at once. The Kravith realized they were not fighting traders or explorers. These humans moved like predators. Every action was calculated. Every move had purpose. The humans fought with a skill born from thousands of years of warfare on their brutal homeworld. Warlord Thraxus watched his fleet being torn apart. He had lost 6 ships in less than 20 minutes. His remaining vessels were damaged and his crews were frightened. He had fought dozens of battles, conquered numerous worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. He ordered his fleet to concentrate all firepower on one target. Every ship focused on the Nightfall, the smallest of the human vessels. 20 Kravith ships poured everything they had into that one target. Surely that would be enough. Captain Greg Hayes of the Nightfall saw it coming. He did not run. He angled his ship to face the storm and pushed his shields to maximum power. The weapons fire from 20 enemy ships hit like a tsunami. His ship shook violently. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. But the Nightfall held together, and while every Kravith ship was focused on the Nightfall, the other 3 human vessels tore into their flanks and rear. It was a trap, and the Kravith had fallen right into it. Morrison's voice came over the fleet channel, calm despite the battle raging around them. He gave a single order. Protocol hammer. Every human captain knew what that meant. Stop being defensive. Attack with everything. Show them what Deathworlders can really do. The Dawn's Justice accelerated again, her engines glowing white-hot. She rammed another Kravith ship, then fired her entire missile magazine at close range. The explosion consumed both the Dawn's Justice and her target in fire. For a moment, the Zilari watching thought the human ship had been destroyed. Then the Dawn's Justice emerged from the fireball, her armor scorched, but intact. The Kravith ship was gone, nothing left but debris. In his fighter, Ryan Carter had stopped counting kills. His squadron was down to 4 craft now, but they had destroyed or crippled 8 Kravith vessels. He saw a Kravith fighter trying to escape and pursued it. The enemy pilot was good, but Carter was better. He had been flying since he was 16. He lived for this. His railgun round caught the Kravith fighter in the engine. It exploded silently in the vacuum of space. The battle had been raging for 30 minutes. Half the Kravith fleet was destroyed or disabled. The humans had not lost a single ship, though all 4 were damaged. The remaining Kravith vessels were pulling back, trying to reorganize. Then Warlord Thraxus made a decision born of rage and desperation. If he could not win, he would make the humans pay. He ordered 3 of his cruisers to break formation and target the Zilari research station. If he could not have it, neither could the humans. On the station, Commander Zelith saw the 3 ships turning toward them. He understood immediately. This was the end. Those weapons would shred the fragile domes in seconds. 200 lives would end because some humans had tried to help. He closed his eyes. At least they had tried. At least someone had cared enough to fight for them. That was more than he had hoped for. Captain Morrison saw the 3 Kravith cruisers turning toward the station. He understood instantly what they intended. His jaw tightened. Lieutenant Ben Tucker was already calculating intercept courses. Commander Lisa Chang was shaking her head. "Sir, we cannot reach them in time," Lisa said, her voice tight with frustration. Morrison looked at the numbers. She was right. The Dawn's Justice was too far away. Even at maximum speed, they would arrive 15 seconds too late. And in 15 seconds, the Kravith could reduce that station to rubble. "Then we go faster," Morrison said simply. He pushed the engines past their safety limits. The ship shuddered as power surged through systems never meant to handle such stress. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Carl Sanders watched his displays light up with warnings. Every gauge was in the red. Every safety system was screaming. He did not shut anything down. He knew what was at stake. He pushed the engines even harder. The Dawn's Justice accelerated, but it was not enough. The Kravith cruisers were charging their weapons. 10 seconds until they could fire. But Ryan Carter's fighter squadron was closer. They had been chasing down fleeing Kravith fighters and were in a better position. Carter saw what was happening. He did the math in his head. His fighters did not have the firepower to destroy 3 cruisers, but maybe they did not need to destroy them. Maybe they just needed to distract them. "All wings, follow me," Carter ordered. Full burn toward those cruisers. Amy Foster, his wingman, checked her display. "Sir, we do not have the weapons to stop them. We will just get ourselves killed." "We do not need to stop them," Carter replied. "We just need to make them miss." He pushed his fighter to maximum speed. The other 5 pilots followed without hesitation. They screamed toward 3 warships that were each 100 times their size. It was insane. It was suicide. It was exactly what needed to be done. 5 seconds until the cruisers could fire. Carter launched everything he had. Missiles streaked toward the lead cruiser. His railgun fired continuously. The cruiser's shields absorbed the hits easily, but the impacts made the massive ship rock slightly. The weapons lock on the station broke for just a moment. 4 seconds, Amy Foster and 2 other pilots did the same, hammering the second cruiser with every weapon they had. The Kravith ship's point defense systems activated, shooting down most of the missiles. But some got through. Small explosions rippled across the shield. 3 seconds. The Kravith cruisers had to make a choice: maintain their lock on the station or deal with the fighters attacking them. The fighters were small and weak, barely worth noticing. But they were hitting them right now. The station could wait a few more seconds. The cruisers turned their point defense weapons on the fighters. Heavy plasma cannons designed to stop missiles and torpedoes now targeted the tiny human craft. Amy Foster's fighter took a direct hit. Her ship exploded. Carter saw her escape pod eject just before the fireball consumed her craft. 2 seconds. 2 more fighters went down. 1 pilot ejected. The other did not make it. Carter felt rage flood through him. His friends were dying, but they had bought time. Just a little bit more time. 1 second, the Dawn's Justice arrived, but Morrison could not use his main weapons. The station was directly behind the cruisers. Any shot that missed could hit the Zilari. Instead, he did something the Kravith did not expect. He launched boarding pods, dozens of small armored pods shot from the Dawn's Justice. They were designed to carry Marines onto enemy ships. Each pod had powerful engines and a reinforced nose that could burn through ship hulls. The pods scattered, targeting all 3 cruisers at once. The Kravith crews saw them coming, but too late. The pods slammed into the cruiser hulls and began cutting through. Alarms rang throughout the Kravith ships. They were being boarded. Inside Cruiser 1, the Kravith Marines rushed to the breach points. They were ready for battle. The Kravith were large and strong, covered in natural armor plates. They carried heavy plasma rifles. They had fought boarding actions before and always won. Then the first human Marines came through the breach. Sergeant Danny Wright led his squad onto the Kravith ship. He was a big man, even for a human, standing over 6 feet tall and wearing heavy-powered armor. Behind him came 11 more Marines, all armed and ready. They moved fast despite the armor, their weapons up and tracking for targets. The Kravith Marines opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked down the corridor. 2 hit Danny's armor. The impacts would have vaporized most species. The human armor absorbed the shots. Scorch marks appeared on the chest plate. Danny kept coming. Then the humans returned fire. The sound of their rifles was deafening in the enclosed space. Unlike the Kravith plasma weapons, which made a high-pitched whine, the human weapons made a deep, thunderous roar. They were firing solid metal bullets thousands per minute. The Kravith shields held for the first few shots. Then they shattered under the sustained fire. The bullets that followed tore through Kravith armor and flesh. 3 Kravith Marines fell in the first seconds. Danny's squad advanced like a machine. They moved from cover to cover, suppressing enemy positions with overwhelming firepower. When a Kravith tried to flank them, the Marines shifted instantly to meet the threat. They had trained for this. Humans had been fighting ship-to-ship boarding actions since before they left Earth's oceans. The Kravith tried to mount a defense. They were brave and experienced, but they had never fought anything like humans. These warriors did not stop when wounded. Danny took a plasma bolt to the leg that burned through his armor. He grimaced but kept fighting. Another Marine lost her helmet to a near miss. She just put on her emergency mask and continued firing. Danny's squad reached the first major corridor junction. 20 Kravith Marines were dug in with heavy weapons. It was a killing zone. Any frontal assault would fail, so Danny did not make a frontal assault. He pulled out a breaching charge and slapped it on the wall. The charge blew a hole into the adjacent corridor. His squad poured through, flanking the Kravith position. The enemy tried to reposition, but they were too slow. Human Marines hit them from an unexpected angle. The firefight was over in seconds. On the other two cruisers, similar battles were happening. Human Marines were pushing deep into the ships, overwhelming the defenders with speed and aggression. The Kravith had size and strength. The humans had tactics and an absolute refusal to quit. Danny's squad reached the bridge of Cruiser 1. The doors were sealed and heavily armored. He attached multiple breaching charges, more than was probably necessary. The explosion blew the doors completely off their hinges. Danny and his Marines rushed in. The Kravith bridge crew tried to fight back, but they were no match for armored Marines with superior training. Within minutes, all 3 cruiser bridges were under human control. The Marines forced the Kravith to shut down their weapon systems at gunpoint. The 3 cruisers went dark. Their weapons powered down. The threat to the station was over. In space, the remaining Kravith fleet saw what had happened. They saw their cruisers captured by boarding parties. They saw the human ship still hunting, still dangerous. And they saw Warlord Thraxis's flagship trying to escape. The 9 remaining Kravith vessels broke formation and ran. They headed for the system's jump point as fast as their engines could push them. Morrison watched them go on his display. Part of him wanted to chase them down and finish this. But that was not the mission. The mission was to save the Zilari. All ships, stand down, Morrison ordered. Let them run. Let them tell everyone what happened here today. The human ships stopped pursuing. They formed a protective perimeter around the moon, their weapons still hot but no longer firing. The battle was over. The humans had won. On the Zilari station, Commander Zilith stood at the observation window, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. 4 human ships had defeated a Kravith fleet. They had saved his people from certain death or slavery, and now those ships were taking up positions around the moon, protecting them. Zilith felt his legs go weak. He sat down heavily, his hands shaking. Around him, other Zilari were crying with relief. The children who had been huddled in the center of the dome were laughing now, not understanding how close they had come to death. Parents held each other, whispering prayers of thanks to whatever power had sent these humans to save them. The communications panel beeped. It was a message from the human flagship. Zilith answered it with trembling hands. A face appeared on his screen. It was Captain Morrison, looking tired but calm. Commander Zilith, Morrison said. Your station is secure. The threat has been eliminated. We will remain in the system until we are certain no more Kravith ships are coming. Are there any casualties among your people? Zilith struggled to find his voice. No casualties. You arrived just in time. You saved us all. He paused, then asked the question burning in his mind. Why? Why did you risk your lives for us? We are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer in return. Morrison smiled slightly. You needed help. We heard your call. That is enough reason. Now we are sending down medical teams and engineers to check on your people and repair any damage. With your permission, of course. Permission granted, Zilith said immediately. Anything you need? Anything at all. Small landing craft began descending from the human ships. They touched down near the research station gently. The hatches opened and humans emerged. Zilith saw they were of all different sizes and appearances. Some were tall, some shorter. Their skin came in many shades. But they all moved with that same quiet confidence he had seen in Captain Morrison. The first human to approach the station entrance was a woman wearing medical insignia. She introduced herself as Dr. Kate Wilson. She had brought medical supplies and asked to check on the Zilari, especially the children. Zilith led her inside and she immediately went to work, her manner gentle and professional. More humans followed. Engineers who began checking the station's systems, making sure the Kravith bombardment threats had not damaged anything. Marines who stood guard, their powerful armor somehow reassuring rather than frightening, and regular crew members who simply talked with the Zilari, answering questions, sharing stories. Zilith watched Sergeant Danny Wright. the Marine who had led deboarding action, sitting on the floor surrounded by Zalari children. They were climbing on his armor, fascinated by the technology. Wright was laughing, letting them explore, explaining how different parts worked in simple terms they could understand. This was one of humanity's fiercest warriors, and he was being gentle with children. Commander Lisa Chang approached Zeleth. She had come down with one of the landing parties. "Commander, I wanted to personally ensure your people are well. Is there anything else you need?" Zeleth looked at this human woman who had helped coordinate the battle that saved his people. "I need to understand," he said. "Your people are warriors. We watched you fight. You were brutal and efficient, but now you are here being kind and gentle. How can you be both?" Lisa thought about this for a moment. "Being strong does not mean being cruel," she said. "The strongest people can afford to be gentle because they have nothing to prove. We fight to protect, not to dominate. We are capable of great violence, yes, but we choose when and how to use that capability. Today we used it to save your people. That is what our strength is for." "But your warriors risked their lives," Zeleth said. "Some died to save us." "Why would they do that?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Lisa replied simply. "Because we heard people calling for help and we could answer. Because we believe that the strong should protect the weak, not prey on them. These are our values. This is who we are." Zeleth felt something he had not expected. Hope. Not just hope for his own people's survival, but hope for the galaxy. If humans were truly like this, if they really were protectors rather than conquerors, then maybe the age of species like the Kravith was coming to an end. "We owe you everything," Zeleth said. "How can we ever repay this debt?" Lisa smiled. "There is no debt. But if you want to help us, then help us spread the word. Tell other species what happened here. Tell them that humanity is listening. Tell them that if they need help, we will come." That night, as the human ships maintained their protective watch, Zeleth composed a message. He described everything that had happened. The Kravith threat, the human response, the battle, and the mercy shown afterward. He praised humanity's courage and their values. And he ended with a declaration that would spread across the galaxy. "To all species who face oppression, who cry out in the darkness, know this. The humans are listening. Call to them and they will come. They are not conquerors. They are protectors. And the galaxy is safer because of them." He transmitted the message on every frequency he could access. Within hours it reached nearby systems. Within days it would reach hundreds of worlds. The galaxy was about to learn about humanity, and nothing would be the same again. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The council chambers on Unity Prime Station hosted representatives from 47 member species. Today they had invited humanity to send a delegation. Ambassador Nicole Parker represented Earth, flanked by military advisor Admiral Peter Cross. They stood before the council, knowing they were being judged. The council chair, a dignified being from the ancient Morvathi species, spoke first. "Humanity has been observed by this council for the past 2 years since you achieved faster-than-light travel. We have watched your expansion into space. We have noted your military buildup, and now we have seen you wage war against the Kravith Dominion." Nicole stood calmly, waiting for the accusation she knew was coming. "Many council members are concerned," the chair continued. "You come from what we classify as a Class A death world. Your species is aggressive, territorial, and heavily armed. Some here believe you represent a threat to galactic peace." "And what do you believe?" Nicole asked. The chair considered this. "I believe we need more information. Why did you intervene at Viridian 7? The Zalari are not your allies. You had no treaty obligation, no profit motive. So why risk your people?" Nicole looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Some watched her with fear, others with curiosity, a few with hope because someone had to, she said simply. "Because we heard people crying for help, and we had the power to answer. Is that not reason enough?" A council member from the reptilian Scarric species spoke up. "But at what cost? You destroyed Kravith ships. You killed thousands. You speak of protection, but you wage war." Admiral Cross stepped forward. "We wage war so that others do not have to. Yes, we killed Kravith. We will not apologize for that. They were attacking innocents. They refused to withdraw. We gave them a chance to leave peacefully. They chose violence. We answered in kind. The council chamber fell silent. The representatives conferred among themselves using various forms of communication. Finally, the chair spoke again. The council has reached a decision. Humanity will be offered provisional membership. You will be monitored closely. But more importantly, we have a proposal. Nicole raised an eyebrow. What kind of proposal? The Galactic Council maintains peacekeeping forces, but they are limited. We are a bureaucracy, slow to respond, bound by regulations and treaties. But threats like the Kravath do not wait for paperwork. We need rapid response forces. We need protectors. We need what humanity has already proven to be. Nicole considered this carefully. We would need guarantees. We will not be used to enforce unjust laws or suppress legitimate resistance movements. We will not be anyone's attack dogs, agreed. You would have autonomy in your operations. We ask only that you coordinate with council oversight and report your actions. Nicole looked at Admiral Cross. They both knew what Earth's answer would be. Humanity had always had a complicated relationship with authority, but they had never turned away from those who need help. We will answer, Nicole confirmed, but on our terms. We protect who needs protecting. We fight who needs fighting, and we never ever back down from bullies. The Kravath Dominion did not forget Viridian 7. In the halls of their war councils, the defeat burned like acid. Warlord Thraxus had been executed for his failure, but his replacement, Warlord Cross, was no less ambitious and far more cunning. He spent months studying everything the Dominion knew about humans. He watched the battle recordings again and again. He analyzed human tactics, their weapons, their ships, and he began to form a plan. Cross understood something his predecessor had not. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also predictable. They responded to distress calls. They rushed in to save the innocent. That compassion, that need to protect, was both their greatest strength and their greatest weakness, and Cross intended to exploit it. He selected a target carefully. The Valar system hosted a peaceful research station, much like the Zilari colony. But this station belonged to the Novan species, insectoid beings known for their mathematics and astronomy. They had no weapons, no defenses, and they were under human protection. Perfect bait. Cross assembled a fleet 3 times larger than the one Thraxus had commanded. 60 warships, heavily armed and ready, but he did not intend to fight at the research station. That would be the trap, not the battle. He positioned 40 of his ships in a hidden staging area 3 systems away. Then he sent 20 ships to attack the Novan station. He gave them specific orders. Make it look real, but do not destroy the station. Just threaten it. Wait for the humans to come, then jump away immediately. The plan was simple but effective. The humans would chase the fleeing Kravath ships right into the ambush. 60 ships against 4 or 5 human vessels. Even Deathworlders could not overcome those odds. Cross would destroy the human fleet and send a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not invincible. The attack on the Novan station began exactly as Cross planned. His 20 ships arrived and began threatening the station. The Novans sent out their distress call immediately, and the first response group received it within minutes. Captain Morrison did not hesitate. The Dawn's Justice and 4 other ships jumped to the Valar system at maximum speed. When Morrison arrived, he saw the Kravath fleet surrounding the station. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Tucker, noted something odd. The Kravath were not firing. They were just positioned in a threatening formation. Weapons charged but not shooting. It looked like they were waiting for something. Could be they are trying to force a surrender, Commander Lisa Chang suggested. Save themselves the ammunition. Morrison frowned. Something felt wrong, but he could not identify what. The Novans were in danger. He had to act. He ordered his fleet to engage. The moment human ships moved into attack range, the Kravath fleet jumped away. All 20 ships vanished in flashes of light, using their faster-than-light drives to escape. They left behind a clear trail showing where they had gone, a nearby system with no inhabitable planets, a perfect place for a running battle. Morrison made his decision in seconds. The Kravath were running, probably hoping to regroup somewhere else. If he let them escape, they would just attack another target. He had to pursue and finish this now. He ordered his fleet to follow. The 5 human ships jumped after the Kravath. The journey took only minutes. When they arrived in the empty system, they found the 20 Kravath ships waiting. And behind them, emerging from behind a gas giant, came 40 more Kravath warships, 60 ships total. The trap had been sprung. On the bridge of the Dawn's Justice, everyone saw the trap immediately. They were outnumbered 12-1. They were deep in enemy territory with no support within range. They had walked right into the Kravith plan. Morrison felt his stomach drop. He had made a mistake. His eagerness to protect the Novans had made him careless. He had not scouted properly. He had not waited for reinforcements, and now his people would pay the price. "Sir, we should jump out immediately," Lisa said urgently. "We cannot win this fight." Morrison looked at the display. Lisa was right. This was not a battle they could win. But jumping away would take time. They needed to power up the jump drives, calculate safe coordinates, and then execute. That would take at least 2 minutes. The Kravith would not give them 2 minutes. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Morrison ordered. "Buy time for jump calculations. We are leaving." The 5 human ships scattered, trying to avoid the incoming Kravith fleet. The enemy opened fire with everything they had. Space filled with plasma bolts and missiles. The humans dodged and weaved, their superior maneuverability buying precious seconds. But there were too many Kravith ships. The Valiant took multiple hits. Her shields collapsed and her hull was breached in 3 places. Captain Helen Price reported fires on multiple decks and casualties mounting. The Iron Storm tried to cover her but took heavy damage in return. Morrison watched his fleet being torn apart. They had 90 seconds until they could jump. It might as well have been 90 hours. At this rate, none of them would survive that long. Then something unexpected happened. New signatures appeared on the display. Ships were jumping into the system. Not human ships. Solari ships. 12 vessels, small and lightly armed, but they were there. And they were heading straight for the Kravith fleet. Commander Zeleth's voice came over the communications channel. "Captain Morrison, the Zolari remember what you did for us. We will not abandon you now. We may not have your weapons, but we have something else. We have courage learned from watching humans." Morrison wanted to order them away. The Zolari ships were not warships. They were converted cargo vessels and research ships with weapons hastily mounted. They would be destroyed in seconds. But he knew Zeleth would not listen. The Zolari were paying their debt. The Zolari ships dove into the Kravith formation, firing their limited weapons. They were not causing much damage, but they were causing confusion. The Kravith had to split their attention between the human ships trying to escape and these new attackers. It bought precious seconds, but those seconds came at a terrible cost. 3 Zolari ships were destroyed immediately. Xyleth's flagship was hit badly, venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. But still they fought. Still they gave the humans time. 60 seconds until jump. More ships appeared. Novan vessels this time. The very people the humans had come to save. They were even less prepared for combat than the Zolari, but they came anyway. They owed humanity their lives. They would not let these protectors die alone. Morrison felt emotion grip his chest. These species had no reason to risk themselves. They were not warriors, but they had learned something from humanity. They had learned that sometimes you fight not because you can win, but because it is the right thing to do. 40 seconds. The Kravith were getting frustrated. Their carefully planned ambush was falling apart. Too many targets, too much chaos. Warlord Cross ordered his ships to ignore the newcomers and focus only on the human vessels. Kill the humans and the others would flee. 20 seconds, the Nightfall lost all power. Captain Greg Hayes and his crew were dead in space, shields down, weapons offline. A Kravith cruiser moved in for the kill, charging its main weapon. Hayes watched death approach with calm acceptance. At least they had tried. Then Zeleth's damaged ship threw itself between the Nightfall and the Kravith cruiser. The Zolari vessel was tiny compared to the warship, but Zeleth rammed it directly into the cruiser's weapon ports. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. Morrison saw it happen. Saw Xyleth sacrifice himself and his entire crew to save human lives. The Zolari who humanity had saved were now dying to save humanity. The debt was paid in the only currency that truly mattered. Blood and courage. 10 seconds. "All ships prepare to jump," Morrison ordered, his voice tight with emotion. "Execute on my mark." The human ships aligned themselves, their jump drives humming with power. Around them, Zolari and Novan ships continued to fight, continued to die, buying time with their lives. 8 more Zolari vessels were destroyed. 5 Novan ships were crippled. 5 seconds. The Kravith realized what was happening. They poured everything into stopping the jump. The Dawn's Justice shook under the assault. The Iron Storm lost another engine, but they held together long enough. Jump. Now. The 5 human ships vanished in flashes of light, escaping the trap. Behind them, the remaining Zalari and Novan vessels scattered and fled in different directions. The Kravith tried to pursue but had suffered too much damage themselves. Warlord Cross screamed in rage. He had been so close to destroying the human fleet. But the intervention of those weak species had ruined everything. The first response group emerged 3 systems away, all 5 ships damaged but intact. Morrison immediately ordered damage control and casualty reports. The Valiant had lost 18 crew members. The Iron Storm had lost 12. The Nightfall was still without power and would need to be towed home. But they had survived. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer reported. "It is from the Zalari fleet." "What is left of it?" Morrison took the call. The face that appeared was not Zileth. It was a younger Zalari named Verath, who had been commanding one of the other ships. Her lights were dim with grief. "Captain Morrison," Verath said softly, "Commander Zileth is dead. He saved your ship at the cost of his own. We lost 10 ships and 200 crew members. But you survived. The humans who saved us now live because we saved you. The debt is balanced." Morrison felt tears burn his eyes. 1 year after the Valar ambush, the Galactic Council convened another special session. But this time the atmosphere was different. There was no fear in the chamber, no suspicion. Instead, there was something that had been missing from galactic politics for generations. There was hope. Ambassador Nicole Parker stood before the council again, but she was not alone. Beside her stood Verath, now the leader of the Zalari delegation. On her other side was Novek, representing the Novan species. Behind them stood representatives from 12 other species who had joined what was now being called the Guardian Alliance. The council chair, the same Morvathi elder who had questioned humanity a year ago, looked at the assembled delegates with something resembling satisfaction. "The council recognizes the Guardian Alliance. Ambassador Parker, you have requested this session to present a proposal. Please proceed." Nicole stepped forward. "Thank you, Council Chair. 1 year ago, humanity was offered the role of Rapid Response Protector. We accepted that role and have carried it out to the best of our ability. But the events at Valar taught us an important lesson. We cannot do this alone. We should not do this alone." She gestured to the delegates beside her. "The species standing with me today have all chosen to join humanity in our mission. Some, like the Zalari and Novans, have already proven their courage in battle. Others bring different strengths. The Thero Collective offers intelligence gathering. The Delphini provide medical support. The Korath bring engineering expertise. Together we are stronger than any one species could be alone." A council member from the Scarrick species spoke up. "You are proposing a military alliance outside council control. This could be seen as a threat to council authority." "We are proposing a defense alliance," Nicole corrected. "We have no interest in conquest or politics. Our only goal is protecting innocent lives from those who would harm them. We will coordinate with the council, share intelligence, and report our actions. But we need the freedom to act quickly when lives are at stake." Admiral Peter Cross stepped forward. "The past year has shown that the galaxy needs rapid response capabilities. The Council's peacekeeping forces are important and valuable, but they cannot be everywhere. The Guardian Alliance fills that gap. We go where others cannot or will not go. We face threats that others are not equipped to handle." Verath spoke next, her voice carrying the weight of loss. "The Zalari were a peaceful species. We knew nothing of war or violence. When the Kravith came for us, we were helpless. Humanity taught us that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. They showed us courage. Now we choose to stand with them, not as subordinates but as equals in this mission." Novak added his voice. "The Novans were the same. We studied the stars but never thought we would have to fight for our right to do so. Humanity protected us and then they taught us to protect ourselves. This alliance is not about human domination. It is about shared values. The belief that the strong should protect the weak. That evil must be opposed. That some things are worth fighting for." The council chamber filled with discussion. Representatives debated among themselves. Some saw the Guardian Alliance as a positive development. Others worried about an armed force outside council control. The debate went on for hours. Finally, the council chair called for order. "The council has deliberated. We have concerns about any military force operating independently. However, we also recognize the value you have provided. The Guardian Alliance has saved thousands of lives in the past year. You have stopped threats that the council could not address in time." He paused, choosing his words carefully. Therefore, the Council grants official recognition to the Guardian Alliance. You will be considered an independent organization, working in cooperation with the Council. You will have access to Council resources and intelligence, and in return, you will provide transparency and accountability for your actions. Nicole bowed respectfully. The Guardian Alliance accepts these terms. We thank the Council for their trust. 6 months after receiving Council recognition, the Guardian Alliance faced its biggest test yet. The Kravith Dominion launched a major offensive, attacking 3 systems simultaneously. It was clearly designed to overwhelm the Alliance's response capability. They could not defend all 3 locations at once. Warlord Cross, still leading the Kravith military, expected the Alliance to choose which systems to save and which to abandon. Instead, the Alliance split its forces and sent help to all 3. They were stretched thin, outnumbered at each location, but they were not alone. At the first system, human ships led the defense alongside Zilari support vessels. At the second, Korath warriors fought beside human marines. At the third, a mixed fleet of 5 species combined their strengths into a coordinated defense. The battles were fierce and costly, but the Alliance held all 3 systems. The Kravith lost 30 ships and thousands of warriors. Worse, they lost their reputation for invincibility. Species across the galaxy watched the battles and saw that the Kravith could be beaten, not just by humans, but by anyone willing to stand together and fight. After the battle, Warlord Cross received a summons from the Kravith High Council. They were not happy with his continued failures. The war with the Guardian Alliance was costing too much and gaining nothing. The Dominion's expansion had stopped completely. Their subject species were starting to rebel, emboldened by the Alliance's example. The High Council gave Cross a choice: find a way to defeat the Guardian Alliance or negotiate peace. Cross chose neither. Instead, he launched one final, desperate attack. He gathered every available ship, over 100 warships, and attacked the Guardian Alliance headquarters at Unity Station. It was meant to be a decapitation strike. Kill the leadership, destroy the coordination center, and the Alliance would collapse. The Kravith fleet arrived in overwhelming force, and for a moment, it looked like the plan would succeed. But the Alliance had been preparing for this possibility. Unity Station was not just a headquarters. It was a fortress heavily armed and shielded, and surrounding it were ships from 20 different species, all part of the Guardian Alliance. The Kravith found themselves facing not a helpless station, but a fully prepared defense force. The Battle of Unity Station lasted 6 hours. It was the largest space battle in modern galactic history. Over 200 ships fought in a swirling chaos of fire and steel. The Kravith threw everything they had at the station, but the Alliance held firm. Captain Morrison led the defense from the Dawn's Justice. His ship was in the thick of the fighting, coordinating different species ships into an effective whole. He saw Zilari vessels using their speed to harass Kravith flanks. He saw Korath ships using their heavy armor to break enemy formations. He saw Theral frigates using clever tactics to outmaneuver larger vessels. Every species contributing their unique strengths. The turning point came when Warlord Cross's flagship attempted to ram Unity Station directly. It was a suicide attack meant to destroy the station even if it meant his own death. But Commander Ryan Carter and his mixed-species fighter squadron intercepted. They crippled the flagship's engines, causing it to veer off course. The flagship exploded harmlessly in empty space. Cross died in the explosion, and with him died the Kravith offensive. The remaining Kravith ships retreated in disarray. They had lost over 60 vessels and their supreme commander. The Dominion's military was broken. Within weeks, the Kravith High Council sued for peace. They agreed to stop all aggressive expansion, release their subject species, and pay reparations. The age of the Kravith Dominion was over. The galaxy celebrated. The Guardian Alliance had achieved what many thought impossible. They had stopped a major aggressive power without becoming conquerors themselves. They had proven that defense alliances could work, that different species could cooperate effectively, and that bullies could be defeated when good people stood together. 1 year later, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Dawn's Justice, looking out at a fleet of over 300 ships. The Guardian Alliance had grown beyond anything he had imagined that day at Viridian 7. Ships from 40 different species, all working together, all committed to the same ideals. Commander Lisa Chung joined him as she always did. Hard to believe it has only been 3 years since we first heard that Zalari distress call. Morrison smiled. 3 years and the galaxy has changed completely. Pirates are running scared. Aggressive empires are backing down. Species that were enemies for generations are learning to cooperate, all because humanity decided to answer a call for help. Do you think we made the right choice? Lisa asked. Taking on this responsibility? Morrison thought about Commander Xylith, who had died to save human lives. He thought about the thousands of beings across the galaxy who were alive because the Alliance had answered their calls. He thought about the children on dozens of worlds who would grow up safe because someone stood watch in the darkness. Yes, he said simply. We made the right choice. We showed the galaxy that strength can be used for protection instead of conquest, that different species can work together, that compassion and courage are not weaknesses. These are lessons the galaxy needed to learn, and we were the ones to teach them. And now others are teaching us, Lisa pointed out. The Zalari taught us humility. The Novans taught us